Hey cats, what's happening? Kind of holed up in the man cave here today. Temperatures dropped down. In fact, tonight it's supposed to get down below freezing. And it's windy and blustery out there today, so I'm not going anywhere. There has been some really nice days though, and I have had a lot of time to be out on the bike, enjoying the ride of the season, the springtime rides. In fact, if you watched my last video that I did the ride on, you'll see that the weather was quite comfortable. Anyway, today I thought I would talk about some of the challenges that you may or may not have run into in your years of riding motorcycles. And in the many years that I've ridden, I've had quite a few. I was just watching a video by Saddle Tramp. I don't know if you guys watch him, but I would definitely recommend his channel. He's got some very interesting biker-related stuff. He's probably a well-known biker, where he was recently caught in a flash flood on his bike. He's out traveling and he got caught in a flash flood. And in trying to get out of there, the water got so deep it actually flooded out his engine and stalled his engine. And he was able to push his bike up on the higher ground, get started again, and get the heck out of there. But I can only imagine how stressful that would be, to be caught in a situation like that. Where what do you do? You panic. But I was remembering back at some of the situations that I had been in. If you watched my last video, you'll see that I was riding in rural Ohio, and in doing so, I came across more than one gravel road. And I think in the video you'll see me actually driving on one gravel road. The gravel was like I call it number 57 limestone. It's I don't know, like maybe smaller than a grape, but bigger than a pea size gravel. And riding on that is like actually riding on marbles. So the one road that I was riding on in the video was crowned. So it's higher in the middle and it slopes off to either side. And as I'm riding, the bike wants to follow the flow of the crown and kept wanting to slide over to the side. It was literally like driving on marbles, and I had to remember back to my days of dirt bike riding to keep that thing steady and to keep it on the road without letting me slide off onto the berm. I enjoy challenges like that, though. I wasn't frightened or anything, but I was grabbing the handlebars pretty tight and, focusing on how I'm going to get from one end of this to the next. Very, very tricky riding. Loose gravel is really something that is a danger to bikers. You hit it too fast and you're going down, especially going into a turn. Out here in rural Ohio, a lot of the intersections could have loose gravel or sand on the road, and in taking that corner carelessly, you could dump your bike just that quick. It brought to mind another time when I was riding out in Utah, and I was coming off of this mountain. They were doing some blasting there. So they stopped traffic, and I think I sat there in a line of traffic. I just shut the bike off because I had to sit there for almost like 30 minutes. Just pulled a bottle of water out, was sipping on water. I think I had one of those little crunch bars or something that I ate while I was sitting there waiting. And finally they opened up the road and they let us go ahead. Well, little did I realize, the road that I was on really kind of snaked back and forth down the mountainside. And there was what would you call almost like U-turns or switchbacks where the road would take a turn and come back down and then take another turn and go back down. And as I approached this one area, it was all gravel. It had been part of the area that was under construction, and it was all loose gravel. And I was coming at a downhill into one of these U-turn switchback things, and as I was turning, my front tire wanted to keep sliding straight ahead. Well, there was no guardrails or anything, and it was quite a steep drop off. And I was very white-knuckled on that. I had to put my feet down and really concentrate, take it real slow. I mean, I was basically just on the brakes, just inching my way around to make it around that turn without rolling off the side of the mountain. I did have traffic behind me, but that was the least of my worries, you know. I just wanted to make sure that my bike made it around that corner and back down the mountain. I was never so happy when I finally hit solid asphalt again, because that was very hairy. I mean, a gravel road is one thing, but when you're on gravel and you have to make a turn, that's a whole different story. I'm sure you guys have experienced that at one point or another in your years of riding. One of the other challenges that I ran into, I remember I was out heading out west, and I don't remember, I think I was in South Dakota or one of those states out there, and I hit like a storm of these, I called them mustard bugs. I don't know what kind of bugs they were, but they were thick, and when they splattered on the windscreen, it was like somebody putting yellow mustard blotch on your windscreen. I mean, I picked up a few bugs just like the other day when I was riding, and my windshield needs cleaned again. But I mean, these splotches were so big, and I didn't have this windshield. This is a shorter windshield. I had I call it my grandpa windshield. I had this windshield on the bike, which is much taller, so it deflected a lot of the bugs away from me. Because that windshield, I think, was up probably about this high compared to this one. But it got so bad where I couldn't even see through the windshield. Now, thank goodness for that higher windshield, because if I didn't have that on there, my glasses, my face, and everything would have been splattered up with these things. I had to pull off into a service station and use the scrubber squeegee thing to clean off my windscreen just so I could see to keep going. And I'll bet you I didn't even go 15, 20 miles, and the windshield was covered again with that yellow mustard. It was nasty. When I finally got through that area and set up camp, I think the next morning the first thing I did was go somewhere where I could spray off the bike, you know, one of those car washes that you put the quarters in and you use the wand, the pressure sprayer, and you can spray it off. And I cleaned all of the yellow mustard off of my bike. It was a mess. But that was a little bit of a challenge. If it isn't one thing, it's always something else. Here's something that's a challenge, that was a challenge for me, and I'm sure this has happened to you too. Do you ever come to these traffic lights where it doesn't pick up the motorcycle? You know, some of these traffic lights have like a pressure signal or something in the street, and they can sense the weight of a vehicle, and then they'll turn green and let you go through. I stopped at this one red light, and there was no traffic. It was off on I wouldn't say a side road, but it was not a very trafficked area. And there was a traffic light, and I stopped at the traffic light, and it would not change. It continued to stay red, would not turn green. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I realized that there must be some kind of a, signal that glitch in this thing that it wouldn't pick up my bike. I moved forward, I backed up, I jumped up and down. I thought, well, maybe, it'll pick up somehow. the vibration, revved up my engine, nothing. The light stayed red. And I was in a left-hand turn lane. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm in a situation here where I got to break the law one way or another. Either I got to go through the red light, or I'm already in the left-hand turn lane. I have to make an illegal turn out of there to turn right on red. Which in Ohio, it's legal to turn right on red, but not from a left-hand turn lane. So I was in a pickle where I had no choice but to break the law, and I just hoped there was no cop sitting there, and unfortunately there wasn't. There was no traffic to be seen, so I just went ahead through the light and took off. But yeah, that's a challenge, when you get into a city, and it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Another one that happened to me back years ago, I came into a facility that had, one of these automatic gates, and you had to pull up to the gate, and there was a box over here on the left. You had to pull up to that. Of course, it would have been on the driver's side of a vehicle, but I pulled up on my bike, and you had to push the button, and then the gate would lift up and open. So in order to do that, to take my hand off the clutch, I had to put the bike in neutral and let my clutch out. And then I went over and I hit the button, and the gate, the gate went up. And I pulled the bike back up on the wheels again, and I clicked it in first gear, and I started to pull forward. And just that quick, that gate started coming back down on me. Well, I was already committed, so I just went ahead and went through, but the gate came down and it hit me like right here in the face. So at that point, I leaned back over as far as I could, and that stupid gate just scraped right up the side of my head, knocked my hat off, knocked my glasses off, broke my glasses, nor my eye protection. And I did make it through without dropping the bike, but my face was skinned up, and I pulled over to the side. I dropped my kickstand. I got off the bike. I went back. I got my hat. I picked up my glasses and put those back on. And they were, I think, one of the earpieces was broke off. That was very frustrating. And I actually went to the management of that facility, and I said, your gate, came down on me halfway through. And they just looked at me like, well, I guess that's your problem because you were on a motorcycle. Anyway, I would take precautions in the future if you're ever coming up to one of those gates or those automated gates that open and you're on a motorcycle. Beware, because they don't recognize, a smaller vehicle like a motorcycle, where they'd be more apt to definitely recognize a bigger vehicle and stay open. Now, one of my biggest challenges today that I try to avoid by all means is driving at night. And that happens. I mean, sometimes you're out and you get a little later and it gets dark and you have to get home. And that's fine. I mean, I can do it, but I don't prefer to drive at night because I feel like my field of view is limited. I'm always worried about animals coming out in front of me. Worse, though, when it rains. Now, when I'm out and it's after dark and it starts raining and the road glazes over, I'm panicked because I feel like I can't even tell where the lines are on the road. When cars are coming the other way, you get that glare, and you're almost blinded. And it's like, you don't even know if you're in the right lane or not. You just have to kind of stay focused and try to stay to the right of those headlights. You don't want to head on somebody. And it can be very frightening. That the rain, the reflection, the glare on the road is the worst thing. That's my worst nightmare. And so I'm very cognitive about riding when I know it's going to rain and I know I'm going to be out after dark. No, I can't do that, and I'll take every precaution not to get caught in that kind of a situation. Unfortunately, sometimes those things happen and you don't predict it. You just get caught into it, and you have to deal with it the best you can. Aside from getting caught in the rain after dark, I mean, getting caught in a major thunderstorm can be a little can test your patience a little bit too. A lot of people, when they're on the bike and they get caught in a major thunderstorm, they'll find an underpass or something to hide under until the storm passes. I've never done that. I just continue riding, but I try to find, a vehicle that I can kind of tag behind, and I mean, it's almost like I feel safer that way. When I have, say, a truck or something that I can get behind, that's very visible in low visibility conditions, I feel safer that way. Probably one of the worst scenarios I ever got into, though, was heavy fog. We were on our way to Washington, D.C., and V was with me that time. And we came up over the Appalachian Ridge in Pennsylvania, and we got into some very, very heavy fog. It was so heavy that you couldn't even see the taillights of the vehicle in front of you. But the last thing you wanted to do is stop. You had to keep moving. Because I was so afraid. I mean, I even slowed down. I was probably doing 35 on the highway. But the visibility was like nil. You could hardly see in front of you. But I knew that if I stopped, I could very easily get run over by a vehicle that might be behind me. So I had to keep rolling, had to keep moving. And that was scary, I'm telling you. As soon as we started coming down off the altitude and dropping down, the fog lifted and all was clear. But again, boy, was I thankful to get it out of that situation. Some of the worst nightmares of riding. It's one thing if I'm driving my Silverado, my 2500 Silverado. You feel safe in that thing. I mean, V always said, she felt 100% safe when she was in the passenger seat of this truck. When you're on the bike, though, you're quite a bit vulnerable, so all those situations are multiplied tenfold. It's a little different story. So if you ride and you spend the time on the two wheels and you got your experiences are going to be from one end to the other. Eventually you'll run into something that'll challenge you, be almost beyond your limitations. But you got to be prepared for it, and you just got to use your head. If it becomes a little too challenging, maybe you need to just back off and wait until the hazard passes, or perhaps take a different route, take a different detour. It's not always possible. You don't always see it coming. You just got to play it by ear, I guess, and say a prayer. Speaking of prayers, I continue to pray for you guys. I appreciate the prayers for myself too. I can use them just like everybody else. I've been doing okay though. I think my biggest problem lately has been my back has been really, my lower back has really been bothering me quite a bit here lately. But I just keep anticipating that as every week goes by, it'll eventually get better again. Don't even know what I did to it, but somehow I messed it up. Other than that, I'm doing pretty good though, and I pray all you guys are still doing okay. For those of you who are hurting though, for those of you who are going through tough times, no matter what it might be, I keep you in my prayers. Well, thanks for watching today. I wish I could ride today, and I could, but I'd have to really put the winter gear on because it's cold out there today, and I'm just not up for that. So, bike's going to stay parked today. I will go out later. Now I'm taking a truck and riding in comfort. Well, thanks for watching. Hit me with the thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Until next time, cats, ride hard and die free.